Alright, my curious cats. So, I am Curious Alley Cat, and I am going to talk about narcissists and trauma bonding and the addiction of trauma bonding to the narcissist, to the toxic person. So, as a lot of you may know, some may not, depending on those who are aware of narcissistic abuse more or not. It depends, but it is becoming more and more of a pandemic. So what I will touch on is that sometimes the word narcissism is thrown around too much these days, and a lot of people can call anybody a narcissist if something doesn't suit them, something that's been said, or a behaviour. And the thing is with narcissism is that everybody has levels of narcissism in them. There's more balanced levels in some people and less balanced levels. But we, as humans, all have levels of narcissism. But where it becomes more dangerous is when you're dealing with somebody who has higher levels of narcissism, the dangerous levels where they are using, abusing, manipulating, deceiving and controlling to the extreme levels. And now we are talking about people who have narcissistic personality disorder, or you know, they are on those higher levels. I'm not going to go too much into that today. Now I am focusing on trauma bond with the narcissist. And so the beginning of the love bombing stage, the idealization stage, is where it starts. And the narcissist is love bombing you at the beginning to extreme levels. Now at the beginning you will not be aware of this, but love bombing at the beginning of a friendship, at the beginning of a relationship, is extreme. And what narcissists will do, they'll do a form of hypnosis and a form of brainwashing, and they will do mirroring. Now with mirroring, everybody does mirroring to a certain extent, but narcissists do it to the extreme extent, and at the beginning it can be kind of subtle. What they'll do is they'll study you, they'll study your social media, and everybody may do this to a certain extent as well, because in this day and age, social media, most people have it, not everybody has it, or not everybody divulges into it as much as other people. It depends on the person and what they do and what they do for work, etc, etc. Either way, narcissists use social media a lot, and they use it to stalk, they use it to extract information, and they use it to mirror you and others that they are trying to get supply from. So say if you are in the beginning of dating or in a relationship with a narcissist, they will love bomb you. They will do this either via social media, when they're with you face to face, maybe around other friends, maybe around your family and friends, maybe around their family and friends. It doesn't matter whether it's around others or not, but they will love bomb, and they will mirror, and they will idolize you, and they will do this in lots and lots of ways, whether that's with praising you, maybe giving you gifts, mirroring you, mirroring what you like, mirroring what you don't like, mirroring your hobbies, music or whatever. Now, a lot of people do have similar tastes in music and stuff like that, but it's the way they do it. It's very subtle, this sort of body language. There's the thing like with body language mirroring, and their body language as well, and micro mannerisms, and it's a form of little mini doses of injections of spiking you, shall we say. There's a thing called date rape, which is a serious crime. It's a serious thing where people will literally could spike your drink, for example, and they spike people's drinks so that the person can be either partially unconscious or totally unconscious. And what could happen between that time of passing out is up to the person who has spiked you, and they can rape you and do things to you that you do not consent to, and you will wake up not knowing quite what has happened, not remembering what happened when you were spiked, and they can touch you, rape you, abuse you. And this is a horrific thing, and this has happened to me a few times, and I will talk about that story another day, but not today. But what my point is that I'm saying is that narcissists rape you emotionally. They spike you with narco drugs. That's what I call them. I've written about this somewhere on my other Instagram page, where I call it narc drugs or narco drugs, where the narcissist will spike you, will inject you with their drugs, which at the beginning is a form of love bombing, mirroring, and all these things that idolize you. They put you on a pedestal. One way of doing this is that they use triangulation at the beginning of a relationship. With a narcissist, they will triangulate you with either some of their friends, their exes, family members, or whoever they are trying to triangulate you with. For example, at the beginning of a relationship, in the love bombing phase, whatever, they will put you on a pedestal by praising you and comparing you to somebody else. They will do this by, let's say, they will put an ex down, saying, my ex is crazy, my ex did this, they did that, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. And they'll go on and on and on and on and on about the ex or the crazy friend or whoever it is they're triangulating you with. At the same time, they will praise you. So they'll put you on the pedestal and they'll devalue the ex or the friend that they are slagging off. So this is a form of love bombing, and it's extremely toxic. And if you're not aware of it, you will be like sitting there kicking back, having a little drink, having a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, or a cocktail, or whatever the case may be, with the narcissist when you're out and about, going for dinner, going for drinks, in your house, in their flat, whatever, kicking it back. And they'll be like, all of a sudden, oh yeah, my ex was shit at this, or they didn't let me do this, or this and that and the other. But you're so chilled and you're not like that. You're not like my ex. You're so much better at this, this and this, what they're shit and rubbish at doing. And you are great at this, that and the other. But it'll be in a very light-hearted, jokey kind of way, tongue-in-cheek. So it wouldn't feel like a threat to you. It will just be putting you on a pedestal and putting them down because they're in the devalue stage, so they're devaluing them. But what they're also doing is triangulating you, and what they're also doing is controlling you, because when they're saying those things about their ex. My ex is crazy because this, this and this. They did this and they didn't do that, and this, this and that and the other. They are setting you up and they are testing you. They are testing you and setting you up to see how you react, to see how you respond to what you have just said about their ex or a friend or whatever the case may be. So they are setting you up to see how you react, first of all, to see if you are good supply. So if you just sit there and listen and accept what they're saying, then you're going to be ticking all their boxes. Because what they are really doing is brainwashing you and telling you this. They are saying, my ex was shit at this. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. They did this. They did that. They da-da-da-da-da. What they're really saying is, you don't do that. You better not do that. You better let me get away with shit. And don't call me out on that shit. That is what they are doing. They are triangulating you, because later on down the line in the devalue stage, when you're in it, they could potentially go back to their ex or another supply or a new supply and say the exact same things about you to the ex to hoover them back in, or to get some other supply, or a supply that they've already been talking to or even sleeping with or whatever. So while all this love bombing is happening and all this mirroring is happening, and idolizing you and putting you on the pedestal, they're putting the other person down in order for you not to call them out and behave like what they say the other person behaved like, when really they are projecting what they are also in fact doing. So you become trauma bonded while all this idolization is happening, and then it gets shifted into devalue. Now, in the devalue stage, it's usually very subtle, but not always. It depends what kind of narcissist we are dealing with, the whole situation and the whole setup with how they operate. But what happens is, in devalue, there will be a yo-yo, a roller coaster of love bombing and devalue. So 1 minute, 1 week, whatever it is, 1 day, 1 minute in 1 day or 1 week, and it will happen very subtly at the beginning. The narcissist will start devaluing you, and they'll start praising other people above you, because everybody to the narcissist is like in ranking, in levels of supply. So let's say they start triangulating you with the ex that they used to devalue. They also do this to isolate you and the ex. So because you believe them, what they're saying at the beginning, you believe that, you'll say it, that when they said that the ex is crazy, or whatever the put down or the insult is, you're believing them. They're like, oh, look, they're love bombing they're blowing up my phone, they're crazy, look, because all these texts will be coming in from the ex. But really, the ex is in devalue, so they're being stonewalled and getting the silent treatment, and they just want answers to why the narcissist is treating them like this. So they feel crazy because the narcissist has sent them crazy. They are not crazy, they just feel like that because they have been gaslit. Because in the devalue stage, that's when the gaslighting starts. It actually starts from the beginning. But what happens is that they start to devalue you, and then they'll put the ex or somebody else they're triangulating you with on the pedestal. Like, say they'll be with a work colleague, or they'll be talking about their ex again, but this time it'll be the other way around. you know what, my ex is really good at this, and you should be more like them or do it more like them. But it'll be in a subtle way, like they're always comparing you to the ex, or they're always comparing you to someone, whether it's in devalue or in praise, because to them, supply is supply. So if they can get your reaction either way, your response, your reaction, whether that's through what you say in response to them or your facial expression, they love it, because to them, you are giving them fuel, you are giving them supply, and that is their drugs that feeds them. So they'll be devaluing you, and what will happen, it will be subtle, it will be in jokes. Oh, I was only joking. And it isn't a joke, it's an insult, and it will keep happening, and they'll do it very, very subtly. They can pick up on something they picked up that you might have told them about yourself, an insecurity or whatever. You know, you could have said, you know, I'm this, or I'm dyslexic. For example, I'm dyslexic, and they could put you down for that. At first, they could pretend to help you with something like that in the devalue stage, and it'd be like, oh, he's really nice to me, she's really nice to me, she's helping me with my spellings, or whatever the case may be. But then they'll put you down and say that you're stupid or something to devalue you, to put you down and to slag you off. And they'll start to do this around groups of people, whether it be your friends or their friends, but it'll be very subtle, it'll be done in a light-hearted way and in a joking way. And whenever they say, oh, I'm joking, and then they start saying I'm joking, or you're too sensitive, or you can't take a joke, that's when they're gaslighting you in the devalue stage. And they're saying things like, oh, you're too sensitive, or I'm joking, or you can't take a joke. So that's devalue, and it's also very subtly laughing at you, putting you down, and gaslighting you to confuse you and to put you in a state of questioning yourself and questioning whether you're too sensitive. And you start second guessing, and then you start feeling that feeling of anxiety and walking on eggshells around them, because you think, oh my goodness, if I call them out. So if you have to think that you're worried about calling them out on saying saying, oh, why did you just say you're only joking to me, when you're not only joking, that actually did hurt my feelings and it insulted me, and you're actually start becoming scared and walk on saying that and sticking up for yourself, because you're worried about what they're going to say. You know, you can't take a joke. That is a huge red flag, because what is happening is that they're gaslighting you into believing that you're being silly, you can't take a joke. So there's a difference between banter and a joke and having a laugh between friends or your partner, and somebody who is actually insulting you or giving you backhanded compliments. Now, backhanded compliments is something very subtle, and lots of narcissists do it all the time. So devalue. But then they'll devalue you. They'll start giving you maybe silent treatments, start having tantrums, going to narcissistic rage. It depends what kind of narcissist it is. It could be silent treatment, stalwart walling. You'll be wondering why they're treating you like this, and you want to bring it back to how it used to be in the love bombing stage, and everything was like, you know, everything felt safe and secure because they faked all of that about them. So trauma bond happens when it's like a yo-yo of love bombing, devalue, love bombing, devalue, or it could be very subtle, like love bombing, devalue, love bombing, devalue, love bombing, devalue, or devalue, then love bombing all of a sudden. So your brain gets brainwashed into believing, because they're gaslighting you and projecting and triangulating and blame shifting during this sort of cocktail. It's like a concoction of extreme behaviors, love bombing and devalue. And what will happen is your brain and your emotions will be all mixed up, all confused, and you'll be second guessing, walking on eggshells, and utterly confused. When you become utterly confused and you're walking on eggshells or you're second guessing, this is a huge sign and a red flag to shut the whole thing off and leave. Because what will happen is it becomes an addiction for you, because they have spiked you in the beginning. They use hypnosis and they use brainwashing. And I will talk about this whole brainwashing and hypnosis technique. Partly, it is partly the mirroring and all that, but there's more to it than that. So what will happen is trauma bonding comes from these extreme behaviors that they do, and it becomes addictive because you want to get back to that high feeling that you had with the narcissist, because they're getting high off the supply they're getting from you and from whoever they're slagging off, whether that be an ex at the beginning or a friend or whoever they're slagging off at work. And then simultaneously they'll be getting supply from you, from your positive reactions. Then the tables will turn and I'll be devaluing you and love bombing the ex or somebody else very subtly at the beginning. And then sometimes it can be like all of a sudden like these extreme little inputs of love bombing and then devalue, and you're just like all over the place. Trauma bonding is like an addiction, so then you're hooked. And then what happens is, because of all the nice stuff they've done, or what they've done at the beginning, within the first 3-6 months up to a year, it can be up to about a year, at least within the first 2 years this could happen, but definitely within a year. You become addicted, and they want to drug you up like they are addicted to supply, and you end up starting to mirror them as well. We'll talk about that too in another video. But what will happen is things will happen, because you will not have just been loved, but you have most likely, if you are being loved bombed by a narcissist, by a toxic person, whether that's a psychopath, sociopath, narcissist, whatever, what will happen is that you would have been, this trauma bond would have already been set in stone by somebody else during most likely your childhood, in your upbringing. So you would actually be addicted to this behavior from a very young age, whether it's via a narcissistic parent, some other family caregiver, some caregiver, whoever. It could be somebody who was close to you and they managed to influence you, manipulate you, and trauma bond you to this kind of behavior that you become used to it, and you have been brainwashed by it. You become the narcissist marionette. They are the master puppeteer. They are the puppet master. That's another way of putting it. So what will happen? You will develop something, or you may develop something called Stockholm syndrome. I don't know how to pronounce this, but cognitive dissonance. And this is where a lot of the post-traumatic stress disorder or chronic post-traumatic stress disorder can also, you could also get that from trauma bond with the narcissist. So even when you're in the devalue stage, or especially if you are in the discard stage, because the discard is a whole stage of its own, you'll constantly still be second guessing, and you'll constantly be feeling like walking on eggshells and doubting yourself because of all the gaslighting, because of the Stockholm syndrome that some of you might be experiencing. And this might not be the case of everyone, because it's like it depends on the narcissist, it depends on how extreme your abuse is, and it depends on the person, individual person, and the whole healing and coping mechanism is within yourself. So trauma bond is almost like a fog. You're like stuck in a fog when you're in a deep trauma bond with a narcissist or a toxic person, and you become addictive. You are almost like a drug addict, because you become addicted to this behavior where one minute it's like you're being put on a pedestal and everything feels great, and the next minute you're being devalued and everything feels like utter shit. And this is where when you realize this is where you can start to help yourself and start to heal and go through the process, the healing process and the recovery process of being trauma bonded, because it is not an easy thing to get out of, and it is not an easy thing to cope with and deal with. But you know, with trauma bonding there is an element of, I believe, addiction to those kind of behaviors. And this is where you have to remember and think back to your childhood, where you have may have experienced these kind of behaviors before, and you have been trauma bonded to either a parent, a grandparent, an uncle, an auntie, a brother or a sister, or a friend, or some kind of carer. Because it's extreme, but at the same time it's extremely subtle. You will not realize this until you start to come out and you move away from, and you stay away from the narcissist, and you do go into no contact, and the fog starts like disappearing. I'm going to end this video because it's been going on for a long time. But yeah, trauma bonding and things such as Stockholm syndrome can be related, where you want to protect the narcissist sometimes you want to protect them. So it's like almost like a love-hate relationship between you and the narcissist, or a love-resent relationship, or whatever the case may be, where it's so difficult to believe that somebody that could be so nice to you, but they were being fake nice to you, that somebody could be so nice to you, could be so mean. So you're constantly second guessing or trying to convince yourself that they're a good person, but really they're not. They're only good when they can extract something from you, and if they can extract some kind of reaction, some sort of supply from you or anyone, then you're benefiting, you're supplying towards their supply, to their fuel, but not to yourself. And this is why no contact is so important with a narcissist. Minimal contact if you have children with them, and you are supposed to be well, attempting to co-parent, although narcissists don't co-parent, although some of them probably pretend to do that as well. But yeah, no contacts is so important. And when you get out of this cloud, this sort of drugged up cloud that you were in with a narcissist or a toxic person, you start thinking through and going back to your past, even how you could be trauma bonded. And that's when you start doing the work and realizing what it is that triggered the trauma bonding in the first place, from probably quite a young age, probably from your childhood, or even from when you were a baby. So, and then there's the Stockholm syndrome and the I can't say cognitive, I need to practice cognitive dissonance as well. So yeah, it's almost like when you do go into the discard phase, it is going through cold turkey, like you are a drug addict, because you have been spiked by the narcissist, by emotional and psychological and mental rape. They have raped you emotionally, psychologically and mentally, and in some cases maybe even physically. It depends on the person. And you have to go cold turkey, get yourself unhooked, which isn't easy, do whatever it takes, and then find yourself, bring yourself back to yourself, whatever that is, and go through the process of healing and breaking that soul tie, breaking that trauma bond, and not allowing them to manipulate or control you, not allowing them to control your emotions, because you are your own person. You do not belong to anyone. You do not belong to the narcissist. You are your own person. You are love. And when you realize that, the penny will drop and you'll be like, oh my God, I was so drugged up. And your emotions are your emotions, and you are in control of your emotions, and you can learn the tools how you can deal with this yourself and how you heal. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to leave it there. And yeah, have a lovely day. Enjoy the things you want to do for yourself, whether that be nature, something nice to eat, something nice to drink, listening to music, relaxing, breathing, yoga, meditation, going for a run, hobbies, or just doing something very simple like having a shower, getting out of bed, and just being yourself for yourself. Okay, have a nice day.